Hello, all you cartoon lovers. I am Scarlett, and this
I'm
over here
Katie.
is
Oh, Katie.
there. They got it.
We haven't gotten it down yet.
We'll eventually get it down. We are your animates here in the Cartoon Time Machine, which is parked right in the present because today we are going to give our reactions to the Animaniacs 2020 reboot. We have binged all the episodes that came out this past Friday, November 20th. For those of you who watched us live tweet it, thank you. We had a lot of fun doing it. And for those of you who didn't, we're going to give our thoughts in much more depth after having, 2 days to marinate on it and think about our thoughts. Katie, what's your first gut reaction to the new episodes?
Little gut reaction. Overall, still a good show. They did well at rebooting, though there are definitely some things that we said we were worried about that happened.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that the most obvious one is that the format we were worried was going to happen, which is one Pinky in the Brain per episode and extended Warder segments without a lot of new characters. I think that's kind of exactly what happened. Which I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're both very disappointed that they went in that kind of safe format direction.
Yeah. So for the first four episodes, I want to say it was definitely 11-11. No needing to pad the end. They started going more to 7-minute segments towards the second half, and then having a padding segment at the end, which I have mixed opinions on the padding segments.
I'm sort of with you on that because I think they were weaker overall than the padding segments we used to have. I'm thinking of things like Good Idea, Bad Idea, and Mime Time that used to, or the kid who's friends with the other kid who tells him the long story. Who is that? What is that guy's?
Randy's friend, I know, just
Randy's
remember.
friend.
Yeah.
I used to love that because I mean, so many of these little bits were just little nuggets of absurdist humor that did that thing where they're not funny the first time, but they just keep getting funnier the longer they're going. I think the classic example of that in animation is in The Simpsons Sideshow Bob stepping on the rakes, and it goes on for like 30 seconds. I think Animaniacs really thrived with that kind of humor, and the only time I really saw that was the Ralph security camera segment, which I think you liked that less than I did. I I sort of started off not liking it, but the longer it kept going, I gotta say it got to me. I started enjoying myself.
It was definitely a classic Animaniac style bit. It's not my style of comedy in the first place, which will always make things downgrade things. But in terms of those padding things, there was one dot thing, the Masterpiece Theater.
I enjoyed
That was
that.
brilliant. Loved that.
That was that was I think one of the relatively few moments that I thought this could have been in the original series. It's not like I don't think anything was objectively bad. I think everything was overall uniformly pretty decent. That was the one of the very few times in the series where something, had you told me that was in the original series, I would have 100% bought it.
Yeah, it felt like classic Animaniacs 1 2 minute bit making fun of something in just the perfect way. But then like the others, there were the two ending things which were What Goes Bump in the Night. I like that. That was absurdist
Loved that. Very Animaniacs. happy with that.
It was just simple comedy that went on a little bit longer than expected, made it funny. That was good. There was also the alien one, which I
Starbucks
had
and Cindy.
Starbucks and City, which I had mixed opinions on. I do not know if I like it or don't. Here's the thing: if it was like Animaniacs, and something I liked about Animaniacs is these side characters came back, and the theme song really made it feel like they were going to have side characters that
I
would occasionally come in, and all the media I read beforehand, mostly for prepping for this podcast, seemed to make it sound like they had side characters. What I didn't think was it was just gonna be the CEO was basically the only side character, and Edwig. Justice for
Just
Edwig.
for Edwig.
And then the Olympics guy. But they all came into 2 episodes each. And then these one off characters in the end never repeated.
Yeah, I really felt that absence because I enjoyed the premise of Starbox and Cindy. I thought it to me it felt kind of like a spiritual successor to Buttons and Mindy, and even the
Hmm.
same way it always kind of rhymes. They not close enough that it's a one-to-one to be sure, but kind of the same idea of there's an adorable child who isn't aware that she's getting into more trouble than she thinks, and there's some kind of character who's either running away from her, running towards her, whatever. It sort of had that kind of Tom and Jerry type vibe. I enjoyed the violence, I gotta say. Like, I think that was one of the big things I noticed is that there's definitely less cartoon violence this time around. I think, and when it was there, I think it was a much more meta version where they're calling it out a lot more. I think there was less willingness to hurt their main characters, especially. I think Pinky got his share of the hits. I think the Warners themselves didn't get that damaged. Not not that I feel like I sound like a sadist. I don't need to see my favorite cartoon characters getting destroyed. But something like Buttons and Mindy, which is a segment that was completely based on this poor dog getting the crap beaten out of him every episode. I feel like I was missing that sort of element, and I like that Starbox and Cindy kind of was on that level. But I want to say that segment was like episode 7 or 8. That was late in the run, and it doesn't come back. It was almost as
Exactly.
if they were afraid. I think especially in those first 4 episodes, which I believe were the screeners they gave to the press. I think those first 4 episodes they tried to play it so safe that by the time we got midway through, they'd sort of established a run, and we didn't get a chance to have a lot of new segments with these new characters.
Yeah, as I was watching it through, and this was something I was worried about, was at some point I was like, I need a break from Pinky and the Brain because I love Pinky and the Brain, but it's a very simplistic plot line. And that was the beauty of original Animaniacs is you could switch out each character segments very easily to make it just fresh enough each time. And like the Pinky and the Brain, most of them were very fun, good ideas, but it gets predictable. I just you need a break every once in a while. And I, for the most part, was like, when will we see these new side characters they're talking about? So I was very disappointed to not get them till about episode 6.
Yeah, and to your point about the Pinky and the Brain segments, like you said, I thought they were all very fun and very funny, but I think uniformly criticism for all of them is they were all too long. And I think that comes from them trying to, fit them into a show that has less of a variety show format and more of a, almost reminded me of like, the Super Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda. It's just like it's a two-parter. You get half of it is the Warners and half of it is Pinky and the Brain. So by taking these segments that were originally meant to be more just runners, like little 4 or 5 minute things, and stretching them to 10 minutes. I mean, I think in some cases, at least they felt like 10 minutes. I think the Arabian Nights one in particular was one that I felt like, oh my god, this is interminable. This is going on forever. I think the Future Brain one also I felt like was going on for way too long. Because, like you said, it's a simplistic premise. They don't, you don't need to stretch it out, and that's why personally I could never get into the Pinky and the Brain TV series. Is that I like Pinky and the Brain in small doses, and especially since we got them every single episode, the fact that their segments were all so long was a big turnoff for me.
Yeah, there was only one episode that didn't have Pinky and the Brain and
Oh,
instead
there
had
was.
3 Warners.
Oh, you're right. There was that. See. I'm already forgetting, which because they did leave such a strong impression on the series. I will say, unequivocally, best Pinky and the Brain is his robot son. Loved Brain's robot son. That I was smiling ear to ear that whole time, smiling, remembering it. That felt like such a classic Animaniacs thing to do. Wasn't meant to be political. There really wasn't any commentary. It's just we're gonna do a kind of stupid thing, and it's gonna be great.
It was brilliant. I do think the bonus of Pinky and the Brain, and I wish they maybe built into it more, was establishing Brain and Pinky's relationship a little bit more. They
Mm-hmm.
did it in like the Robot Son episode and a couple others where we saw how attached to Brain Pinky was and how much Brain really cared. We got an origin story for Brain.
I was that was so sad Brain's origin story made me cry. I'm like, this poor boy. My
But yeah, I think
boy.
they could have maybe leaned into that slightly more and it would have kept it fresh for longer.
I agree. I will say I did love that gag in the first Pinky and the Brain segment where Pinky says he's used the past 22 years to go to therapy to recognize his abusive relationship with Brain, and then Brain smacks him and it's all done.
That was
I enjoyed that. I
that was
thought that
probably the
was
best gag from Pinky and the Brain.
that was a good gag because I think it did what I think a lot of the gags in this reboot were trying to do is to simultaneously encapsulate how society has changed over the past 22 years, you know, and by acknowledging that we're a lot more critical of these kind of relationships as depicted in the media now, but also sticking to that classic Animaniacs subversion by just immediately undercutting that with some cartoon violence. So I thought that was a really solid gag in two parts.
So then I have one more critique. Or critique. Something I wanted more of, didn't get. There was not enough music.
I knew that was going to be a problem for you. It was a problem for me too. There were very few segments that were just entirely songs, and I think the show really lacked for that.
I think that's such a memorable part of the original, which might have been why they didn't want to do it. But it's again that thing that breaks up the monotony of the concepts that are usually in place for the Warners and Pinky and the Brain. So throwing in a filler song every few episodes really helps change the beat. And we got, I know for sure, at least 2 songs, and I feel like there was one more. But
So I think so. We had the things that have changed since the '90s song. We had the reboot song. First Ladies was kind of a song. I mean,
that's a song. I count that.
Yeah, they were trying to subvert that. But that counts. I think that's at least all I remember.
We never got our song about the Italian artist Giuseppe Armimboldo.
Oh. I think you make a good point. I think the reason they didn't do that is because the original songs are so beloved, and I don't know if Randy Rogel was as big a part of it as he was originally. I remember in that one in the Russian segment they refer to him as original Animaniacs songwriter Randy Rogel. So I wonder if that I haven't had a chance to pour through the credits to confirm it, but I wonder if he wasn't as big a part of it. Too bad. He's definitely still making cartoons. I wonder what the issue was. Maybe it's the same reason they couldn't bring back Tom Ruger. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I think it's Ruger.
I think you're right. But yeah, I think it was just something it was lacking. It's part of that Animaniacs magic that I think, while I understand why they probably didn't bring it back into the reboot, either because they didn't have the original songwriter, or they didn't want to rely too heavily on the tropes of the original. The songs are something that spread across, are easily enjoyed by all generations, and this is a show that's gonna need to feed on the nostalgia of those who watched the original, who are gonna want that, and then also find ways to make it memorable and viral for the young generation. Because I feel like the reason a lot of younger people know about Animaniacs is because the songs are memorable, not because they watched a lot of the show.
I mean, I think that was my first exposure to Animaniacs was when given that, both Katie and I, were born after the run of the original show, so we had to have picked it up from somewhere. And for me, I believe that was watching Wacko's America on YouTube when I was in, 4th or 5th grade, and using that as a way to, I was engaging with it on an educational level, and then eventually I'm like, wait, I can watch this on TV, and it's actually really funny. Let me do that instead. And I think that's probably how a lot of people, especially with, TikTok doing all the Yakko's World stuff, I think that's probably how a lot of young people are relating to it. So I think that was a real miss, I think, from this reboot, and I'm hoping that maybe they saved some of that for season 2. But it really felt lacking. I think that was the biggest thing that made this not feel like the original.
Do you have any other critiques? That summates most my major critiques.
I think my biggest one, it makes me feel bad because I feel like last time we were talking about this, we were saying, oh, I hope they keep their cynical edge, I hope they keep their more adult humor, I hope they're not afraid to take shots at politics. And I feel like I wished on a monkey's paw because there was way too much of that in this for me. And I
Yeah.
loved all the individual jokes. Like, I'm not a Trump supporter. Very, very happy to see the digs at Trump. It made me laugh, enjoyed it. Loved that one segment they straight up ended by calling him a demagogue. Like, that's it's funny to me. And the one, the Tucker Carlson bashing and the Russia segment, it's just, it was too much. I think it left a sour taste in my mouth by the sheer amount of it. I don't think one of those 13 episodes went by without one political dig. There was that whole bun violence episode, which funny, really funny. It's just the amount of it kind of made me yearn for when Animaniacs was, still had that stuff, undeniably. It's just, it was sprinkled in, and most of it was just an absurdist good time. And I think part of that is that they were reading the climate in 2018. They even say it in the first episode that they're writing is in 2018. They don't know what's going to go. But I think, even in the 2 years since, we've all been so inundated with this kind of political humor that I really was coming to Animaniacs for just some of that earnestness, some of that. Yeah, obviously Animaniacs could be cynical, and it's very well known for being cynical. But at its heart, I think there was a warmth that is missing here. The Animaniacs felt meaner this time around, and I don't love that. I think they were trying to steer away from seeming too nice like modern cartoons, and I think they just kind of overshot it, at least for my taste.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. There was in every episode, it didn't even feel like there was just one joke. It felt like a whole segment had to be political. And some of it got a little ham-fisted. And, that it is a thing. Animaniacs and cartoons are a good time to somewhat just take a break. That when every episode was having very in-your-face political commentary, it does get tiring. There were some things that I was like, I could have dealt without this. I could have dealt without the Tucker Carlson bit.
I agree. That was one of the things that I thought, really? Like, we're just going to have an extended segment of making fun of one political pundit who no one in the target demographic has ever watched. I mean, I know that's the point. Like, I know, he's an easy target because of that. They know they're not offending anyone because anyone in the, people who are watching this who even watch Tucker Carlson, will hate him. But because he's such an easy target, it doesn't feel subversive, It's same with the Russia segment. Like, that doesn't, making fun of the fact that Russia is a communist dictatorship, that joke felt like it was from the 90s. That feels stale. It feels, it doesn't feel subversive because it's not. So even young kids know that's not that subversive to make cracks at Russia. Like, they could have made cracks at the Chinese and they didn't. I mean, I think, if they'd really wanted to do something that would have, could have potentially pissed people off, they would have made jokes at the Chinese. But I don't think anyone in Hollywood has the guts to crack at the Chinese right now.
No, and the thing with the Russian one is Animaniacs original and this have a good number of communist jokes. Like Pinky and the Brain have been to Russia so many times, I feel.
Yes.
And they did that several times. I think that was by the point we got to the Animaniacs Russian episode, we had already had 2 at least partially Russian communist Pinky and the Brain ones. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're like, okay, we've taken a lot of pot shots at communism and Russians. Anything else? And, I liked aspects of that episode. It did go on a little long, though.
Oh, that one was one of the Warner segments that I felt really just kept going. And I feel like they just kept going because they really wanted to get to that Air Force One joke, which, again, I enjoyed it. It was funny. All the individual pieces kind of worked. It's just, boy, did it keep going. And we didn't. Why did we need the spying the NSA joke when we literally, I think 2 episodes before, had the whole Edward Snowden Pinky and the Brain thing. Like, we've established this, guys.
Yeah, exactly. When that one happened, I went,
too few. Sorry,
yeah.
Go on.
When we had that second NSA joke, I was like, we just did this. Why are we doing it again? Also, it felt weirdly dated again.
Right.
And even in 2018, that wasn't as big as a thing. But,
Yeah,
like, at
Edward
this point,
Snowden, I
there's
want to
just.
say was like 2015,
I wrote a
2016. Like,
research paper in 2015 about him.
yeah,
He had already been
that
in Russia for a
already.
while.
I will say I enjoyed that segment just for the ending because that felt like a classic Pinky and the Brain ending to have the thing that they were trying to retrieve was the thing they actually needed and they handed it over to Edward Snowden. I mean, and that's a joke that works completely divorced from the rest of the story. Like that's just a good Pinky and the Brain setup. So I think the show was over reliant on the politics because I think they wanted to be sure they would make a splash. Like they want people to be talking about it, and the best way to do it is to tackle topics that to their credit are not usually seen in cartoon shows. So in that respect it's subversive, but I missed that just wackiness. I missed segments that weren't trying to say anything but were just doing something stupid. The show did not feel I think one of the great achievements of Animaniacs was they could do really stupid things in a really smart way. They found ways to make you laugh at really dumb, absurdist things. And that's not easy, You can't just throw random things on the screen and make people laugh. It is hard to make people laugh at absurdist comedy. It was almost Monty Python-esque, the original series. And everything in the reboot feels very overthought. It feels like there was a writer's room poring over these jokes and working really hard to make them snappy and witty and relevant for a modern audience. And I think it almost felt like they were working too hard, honestly. And I think that's such a mean criticism. I'm kind of upset that I'm even saying it, but I think they were trying too hard.
I think with this, we can also have two more critiques from it. One, having so many political jokes and timely political jokes is going to age the show very poorly.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
original Animaniacs benefits from the fact that while it has political humor, it also is lighter and sprinkles it in. So it ages better because you don't always have to deal with that. Are there outdated references now that sometimes you have to go, oh, what's that? Yeah, but most of those tend to be the deep cuts that aren't meant for everyone to get. And going to the next critique I think about with this feeling somewhat heavy political agenda in the writer's room is I felt there were also a lot of emptiness in some of their things they said. And I think of the new theme song has a couple things where they're like gender balanced, gender neutral, and ethnically diverse. I don't know if they hit any of those in truth.
That almost felt too mean. I think to throw that in the I think to throw that in the credit in the title sequence, I think promises something that I think you're right. I think the show doesn't deliver on. I think ultimately they're making a joke because they are none of those things and they hit none of those things. But they're almost promising that they're going to subvert those things. And I was kind of game. I'm like, okay, are you going to go hardcore and and talk about the differences between Dot and the other Warners? Like, are we going to have an episode where she is complaining that she gets paid less than her brothers, or are we going to have an episode with the ethnic stereotypes that are just rife in both versions, honestly, of the series? Are we going to have an episode where we confront that? I don't know. I don't know what they were gonna do with the pronoun neutral. I think they should have left that out. That just felt
Well, here's
mean
the thing
and
with
like something
that.
that's not gonna age well.
No. But here's the thing with that is there, as you know, there are some Animaniacs comics that the artist drew over time.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one where one of them goes, where there's like a scientist who goes, and there's one of each gender, and they name off the Warners, Yakko's male, Dot's female, and Wacko claims he's other.
Oh, I
I was
love
like,
that.
why can't you, if you're saying that in there, play off that where you have a canon piece of media, but why not use it?
Honestly, I'm right. I'm for all of its. I think when they were trying to be subversive, they threw all their eggs in the political basket. I think you could have had. I mean, you wouldn't have to do a very special episode where Wacko comes out to his family. Like I don't think Animaniacs is either prepared or wants to do something like that. But you could absolutely have a funny episode where someone is trying to teach Yakko and Wacko to be more manly, and Wacko wants to do ballet or some shit like that. Like there is room there where you could have Wacko come out in such a way that makes sense for his or their character. I don't know what Wacko's pronouns are.
He is still male according to the show.
Right, so I think they still refer to him as him. So I'll use he his pronouns for Wacko at the moment. But I think there were options they could have gone with if they wanted to. But I think those are still just two hot button things that they didn't want to do. And I frankly think they just went with the easiest route. I think it's very easy to make jokes about Donald Trump, and I'm a little upset that Animaniacs picked that very easy route. They knew no one was going to get offended. They knew they weren't really going to, do anything to make Hulu want to drop them or, Warner Brothers cancel them. Those were all such safe things to do, and the fact they did it so much, it makes me miss that there could have been an opportunity for them to make really cutting, social commentary, and I think they just they threw that stuff out in the theme song, sort of almost to get it out of the way, and then never have to approach it again.
Yeah, so I think that's another knock. I also think when they went for empowering women things, God, it was so many Hillary Clinton jokes. It got very repetitive and very tiring.
Yeah, I did not like the Pinky in the Brain where he has a first lady who is basically Hillary. They make the comment like, oh, maybe I put too much Hillary in her. Like, I don't really know what the joke was supposed to be there other than Hillary type woman is funny. I don't know, guys. I don't know where the humor was supposed to come from there.
Yeah. Stuff didn't hit. Also an episode where it's like setting up for a character come back. Never did.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Hello Nurse?
No, at the end of that Pinky in the Brain segment with Julia. Julia at the end, like setting up Julia to be a recurring character, and she's not.
I would have. I didn't think she was going to come back, but now that you say it, I kind of wanted her to be like the anti-Minerva Mink. Like I wanted her to be like the powerful lady strutting around the forest making men uncomfortable. Like I could have dug that. There were a lot of great ideas here that I wish they had expanded upon. I wish there had been more of Starbucks and Cindy. I don't wish there was more of the gnome that lives in people's mouths. That felt like a Mad Lib segment.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I blocked it out already.
What? Like, and again, I feel like we're being hypocrites because we're saying we want more absurdist stuff, but like that was overthought, That was like someone started out with an absurd idea for a 30-second segment, and then it went on forever. Like that, the only way I think that would have worked if it was like the length of a Mime Time or like Randy's Friend.
Exactly.
And it was like you had like a dramatic title sequence, like, and now, a wedding with a gnome and a mouth. And then you just cut straight to the wedding part. She's about to say I do, and the gnome comes out and screams a bunch of angry stuff and then goes away. Like, that's the only way I can think that joke would have worked. And the fact that it went on for like 5 minutes, it's wild to me that someone thought that was going to work.
I think that's just really the overarching thing we have, like, we feel is wrong with the show is things went on too long, too much.
I completely agree. And I think part of it, the issue is that it was a 13-episode series, season, for the Americans, which I am one. I don't know why I instantly went to series instead of seasons. I am American. I am not British. In any case, oh, Katie's giving me such a look. I think, I know that's trendy, is that, when you have a streaming series, you don't do 26 episodes because it's, 26 is impossible to binge. I think if they had, tried to do 26 episodes, I think we would have more of an opportunity for them to branch out and to be experimental and to have more of that variety show format. But because it was only 13 and they kind of had to get every single one of them to be clean and polished without a lot of room for experimentation, I think that's why we got, something that feels too clean to be Animaniacs. It's too neat. They made jokes about the focus testing, and it feels focus tested. It feels like more like what it feels more like if you'd ask someone, oh hey, person on the street, what do you remember from Animaniacs? And they'd say, oh, the Warners running around the water tower, and oh, all those great adult references, and Pinky and the Brain, love Pinky and the Brain. It's like they asked someone to sum up in 30 seconds what they think Animaniacs is, and then just went with that. And that's not really the heart of it. I think that's very common with reboots now. I think a lot of times it gets so distilled down to the bare essence that people forget that, those main characters only shine so well because of the overall backdrop around them. And I think that's what's missing the most, is that it feels like a Cliff Notes version of what Animaniacs should be.
Yeah, we've been doom and gloom for 30 minutes. Do we have
Yeah,
some positives?
Yeah, let's talk about positives, because there were a lot. Like I think we both say we enjoyed this. We liked this. I know we sound like we're not enjoying it, but there were definitely some positives. Right off the bat, animation. Wow, blown away by this animation. Looks so good, so fast. I loved how fast it was. That felt like the originals. How these characters are moving. Everything's so smooth and so sleek. The colors are beautiful. The Halloween episode in particular, the atmosphere and the colors on that, mwah, loved it. Fantastic.
Yeah, animation was sublime. She said colors, very vibrant, sleek animation, moving around. They really updated the characters, made everything look nice without losing the handmade touch. So I discovered approximately 90% of the show was still hand drawn, which I think helped a lot. I think the real thing is the color differences they were able to do. Very nice. They also brought in different styles of animation every once in a while, which freshened it up. It was fun to see Anime Warners. It was fun to see cute Animaniacs.
I loved the cute segment so much, because that also felt like such classic Animaniacs. No commentary, no nothing. It's just, we're gonna do something wacky. We're gonna experiment with animation, and we're ultimately going to end on a kind of gross note, which so good, so good. Love that so much. I think I really loved the musical segment. I'm forgetting what it's called. Oh, I think it was Here Comes Treble. That reminded me of the scoring section from the original series. Mm-hmm. I think whenever they tried that kind, when they had that kind of experimental edge, I think that's when they really shone, and that was one that I really admired.
Yeah, Pinky and the Brain animation for the intro. Fantastic. New Pinky and the Brain intro is wonderful.
I mean, right. I think that's one of the things that I think they did better than the original, which is the I know sounds scary when you talk about reboots, like they did better than the original, but that opening was great. It looked 90s. I loved how 90s it looked. Like, I know the show was kind of terrified of making 90s references, so they didn't, but that was fun. That I enjoyed that so much.
Yeah, it had the classic feel while updating it. Great time.
Kind of neutral observation, but there were a lot of butts in this show. Can we talk about the amount of butt stuff that happened in this show? Like, I feel like whenever they had every opportunity they could to like heavily outline someone's butt. Like, I noticed it in Starbucks and Cindy, and of course in the bun control episode. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who's picking up on this, but like, a lot of butts happening.
Now that you say it, yes.
Like, again, kind of a neutral observation. I'm not, wasn't bad, wasn't good, but like, that felt very 2000s, 2010s, like our time period, because I think as a society we've gotten a lot more obsessed with butts since the original series. I don't know, butts are funny. I get why they did it. It's funny to see butts. It's probably funny to animate butts. People like butts.
All right. I think some of my favorite parts were when they directly referenced the original.
Oh yeah. I think we're thinking of the same segment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Episode 5, segment 1 is probably gonna come out as my favorite.
I think it, I think I'm with you on that, because that joke that whole segment felt like it was for us. It was for the people who were upset that there weren't more of the original characters in this series. And I'm I wonder if that segment was made by the people in the writers' room who were annoyed by whatever studio or producer mandate that they not bring back all these characters. And I think they were able to get this segment in out of sheer love for these characters. To see that the scary hunter who had taken down all the side characters and now was coming after the Warners, and the amazing reveal that I did not see coming, but I love so much. Can we spoiler? I think we can spoiler. Yeah, but whatever. Spoilers. Stop watching this if you haven't seen episode 5 of Animaniacs. Whatever.
Skip forward a minute.
Chicken Boo. Who is our favorite character, I think, right? Are we okay with saying Chicken
we
Boo
love
is our
Chicken
favorite
Boo. They threw so much shade at Chicken Boo,
Oh.
saying he was the
He's
least
meant to be
favorite.
bad. That's the joke. The joke is that the segment is stupid. That's something that's so missing from this whole reboot, is something as stupid as Chicken Boo that isn't funny the first time you watch it. Isn't really funny the second time it happens, but like by the third Chicken Boo segment in the original series, you got Stockholm syndrome. You love this guy.
Because it's absurdist and a break, even though it is very one joke. It is one joke.
Joke. It's unapologetically one joke, and it doesn't change. It doesn't subvert itself. It's just he wears a disguise to look like human guys, but he's not a man. He's Chicken Boo. Like
I
that is
think
in one verse you sum up the joke.
Yeah. So that twist was absolutely incredible. Because it felt like the old times, I think.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for us, that's going to come out. But I think a running theme for all of our favorite episodes we've kind of mentioned, like our favorite segments, is they are the most absurdist ones.
Oh yeah.
The
Absolutely.
cute episode, that segment. And there was another one we mentioned that I
I
already
mentioned
forgot.
the scoring section one where
Scoring section.
I love how, for all their jokes about how meta they are, I missed that kind of fourth wall breaking where they acknowledge that it's not just that they are cartoon characters, they are in a cartoon, and they have that orchestra there, and they can break right through the screen and mess with the score. I thought that was just a really clever, fun segment.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times they reference back to the first one went pretty well. The only one I'm kind of unsure about, and still sitting with me, is how Hercule Gecko goes.
Yeah, that just went too long again. It was just too long of a segment.
Yeah, and there were aspects I was like, this... Because, like, you're reminiscing back to a very remembered episode, but not remembered for Hercule Gecko, remembered
it's
solely
remembered
for
for
the
the
dirty
fingerprints.
joke. Which brings me to another thing. There were not a lot of Goodnight Everybody's. They went a
were
lot
not.
more PG.
Yeah, there was one, again, that first Pinky in the Brain segment when Brain asks Pinky, do you know what most people use the internet for? And he says, well, I do, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Great. That was, cut, print, that's what the original series would have done more of. And they definitely were afraid to have more sexual humor. Which again is, I think is telling that they went so hard in, the political direction when they could have been, making more adult jokes that they were either afraid to or were instructed not to. I don't know how much of this ended up being studio mandate and how much was really what these creators' vision was.
Yeah. Anything else on your end? Positives? We've been in a lot of negatives.
Right. I feel, it's easier to talk about the negatives of something than the good. It's harder to explain why you like something than why you don't like something. I think the thing to take away from this is, our prediction about this really just feeling like we're coming back to something, warm and familiar. I definitely still had that feeling. Seeing the Warners again, that made me that brought me so much joy. I think the style of humor in many ways stayed the same. I don't think, there was nothing that felt like, oh, old Animaniacs would never have done that. A lot of the humor has stayed consistent. I love the rapid fire pace of the jokes. I think, especially in the Olympics episode, I think they did a really good job of matching the tone of the original and having that speed of the humor. I thought that was great. Overall, I see myself rewatching these. Not as much as the original series, I think, but I definitely think a lot of them are worth a rewatch. And if you're watching this and you haven't watched the series yet for whatever reason, I think you absolutely should. I think it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, it's still a good series. There's definitely just things it missed the mark on, which
And
was never expected to be perfect.
oh, of course, and I acknowledge that there's so much pressure on this series to be good, and they acknowledge that in the very first episode with them trying to make their first lines iconic. They have a tough act to follow. They're not only following one of the greatest cartoon series of all time, they're following a series that has so much built-in nostalgia for people of many different generations who think so fondly of this show that they didn't just have to live up to the quality of the original, they had to live up to the quality of the original as is in people's minds, which is always going to be higher than the actual thing. So they were up against an impossible standard, and yeah, maybe they didn't hit that, but I think they still made something enjoyable despite that.
Yeah, definitely a good way to put it.
Yeah. You have any last thoughts before we sign off for today?
You know, they've made some decisions, but they still have chances to grow and change things because they're still probably writing for season 2 a little bit.
Oh, I don't know. I think they're probably they're probably close to the end of production on season 2.
When is it supposed to come out?
I think it's going to come out like summer next year. I don't know. This animation takes a long time.
That's fair.
I
wasn't sure if it was a year or two out.
Yeah,
I could see it being punch-ups at this point.
Sorry?
There could be some punch-ups still in 2, but
possibly, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they grow from this because season 1 is always going to be safer to grow the audience. Season 2, they might take a couple more opportunities, change some things up, and hopefully fix some of the things that weren't quite perfect in season 1.
I agree. I think that they're going to work on what they've done. Maybe not in season 2, but I'm judging by the good press the show has gotten. I assume we're going to get a season 3, and I think if not in season 2, then certainly in season 3. I hope that they're able to respond to some of the criticisms. I'd love to see more songs. I'd love to see them dial back the political humor, and I'd really love to see more of these new characters and for them to create new characters. Because I don't want to see more of the gnome. I'm sorry, guys. Like, either revise the way you've done that segment and put it into a 30-second chunk, or I don't want to see it again. But I will absolutely watch more Starbucks and Cindy. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, season 1 it's gonna be safer also because it was exactly that. It's the season they need good press, they need good reviews because they want more than 2 seasons for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
They want to run for a while. So
and I'm sure Warner's is probably frantically trying to figure out how they can get this on HBO Max. I don't know. I know that the Hulu deal was struck before HBO Max was a thing, and certainly before Hulu was controlled by Disney. But it amuses the hell out of me that Disney is making a profit off of Animaniacs. Like that, just the concept is so funny because Warner's fingerprints are all over this thing, and it's deeply funny to me that Disney is probably going to make more of a profit off of this than Warner's just because of how distribution works. That's so funny to me.
It's a weird film thing happening there.
Oh my god, Disney consumes all. I think that's where we ended for today.
The mouse is our overlord.
The mouse is our overlord. Why couldn't they make some kind of joke with Pinky and the Brain about that? I'm sorry. Like, even in 2018, Disney's dominion was so strong. I would have loved to see an episode where the Brain wants to talk to Mickey Mouse to try to figure out how he has managed to get so powerful. And they could do that thing where they call him like Ricky Rouse or something like that. Like do that joke where like it's a very thinly veiled parody to get rid of any copyright issues. and just have a really cutting satire of Disney. That would have been really funny. There was not a lot of criticisms of the media other than the fact that there are a lot of reboots. And again, that's an easy joke. There's a lot more criticism of the media that you can do rather than just everything gets rebooted.
So catch us being the writers for season 3 of Animaniacs.
Yeah, come on, Animaniacs writers room, hire us. We're brilliant. God, why haven't they called us yet, Katie?
I don't know. We keep eliminating most of our audience. I won't be afraid of
at this point, who's even watching?
Last I checked, about 5 people.
We've scared them off.
All right.
Well, we've said we're going to end it several times and we haven't. So now for realsies, we're going to end it. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in next time. I don't know what our next episode will be, but it will be fun. We're going to fire up the old cartoon time machine and find out where we'll find good cartoons, past, present, and future to discuss. So until next time, I am Scarlett.
I'm Katie.
We're your Animates, and we will see you next time.
Good night, everybody.